Now, there's a lot of stuff going on. Traders are being traders. They're doing what they're doing. All of a sudden, what makes England, well, to use a verb, England all over it? Why does all of a sudden England decides, hey, you know what? That should be ours. Let's get something going. Where does this idea come from?
So far, we're talking about the Dutch side, and this book, Taking Manhattan, probably 60-40 or 70-30 is an English story. And for me, that was kind of a revelation, looking at it from the English perspective on what was going on. And broadly, what was going on was, over the course of the 17th century, England becoming this bitterly divided society, highly polarized, to use a contemporary term, with the Puritans on the rise. And the Puritans are essentially religious extremists. And then in the English Civil War, when it comes out to war, the other side is normally thought of as the Royalists, which sounds like they're, carrying their banners in support of the king. And I guess a lot of them were, but I think it's more instructive to think of them as everybody who wasn't Puritan, everybody who didn't want this theocratic rule and, outlawing of singing and dancing and Christmas and all that. That split occurs. And in 1649, it comes to a head, literally, when King Charles is beheaded by the Puritans, and the Puritan leader, Oliver Cromwell, steps in, and you begin the Puritan rule. While that's going on, what I focused on in the book is Richard Nicolls as sort of the central figure. He leads this flotilla of warships to come into the harbor, and he has this deep connection with the Stuart princes. So after the king is beheaded, his two sons go into exile on the continent, and Richard Nicolls has known them his whole life. They've grown up together. He goes with them. He fights in England and then in France with them. Then in 1660, Cromwell has died, and the two sons come back. And the one, King Charles becomes king, and his brother James, the Duke of York, together they are going to kind of run the government now. And right off the bat, within months of taking power, England throughout this period is envious of the Dutch. The Dutch have their trading companies, and they're just going gangbusters, and the rest of Europe just can't figure it out. So they want to play catch up. They found right away Council for Foreign Plantations, which is to begin colonizing other parts of the world. The Royal Africa Company, which you can guess what its business ultimately is going to be. And the Royal Society, which is interesting because it's the Royal Society for the Advancement of Science, and it's still a highly prominent scientific organization. So they're doing all this stuff, and they're looking across the Atlantic, and they want to begin to build an empire. And they're looking at America, and they see that there are English colonies to the north and English colonies to the south, but right in the middle is this Dutch territory of New Netherland, and they decide they have to do something about this. So they have to look around for someone to lead an expedition, and they pick this guy, Richard Nicolls, who they've known all their lives.